Hey folks, as you can tell from the title of this video, I'm going to talk to you about things that you should not, and also things that you should say to trans folk. Whether they be family members, friends, strangers online, just the general trans community and how to talk to them. First off, I will say, like, as a person who is non-binary, trans-masculine, the way I like to be spoken to as a trans person and treated as a trans person will differ from a binary trans person, and particularly trans feminine people. It's a different situation. Like, a lot of the same rules apply, but obviously be smart and use the right context. This is not a video that's aimed at telling people off. This is a video that's aimed to educate and help people figure out some things that maybe they didn't really know how to approach beforehand. I am that trans person. If you want to come talk to me about something, just be polite about it, and I'll educate you to the best of my abilities, or I'll tell you what you should or shouldn't do. And that's kind of the point in this video. Like, I have people who have asked me certain things about how to approach other trans people, and you know, the best way to do it in a way that is just treating us with basic human decency. So I'm going to start with the list of things that you should not say to trans folk. So a really kind of simple one is don't out people to other people or online. So this isn't necessarily something that you're saying to the person, but something that you're saying to other people about that person. If they are potentially in a dangerous situation where coming out is harmful to them because of where they live or their family situation, or you know, someone that they're depending on isn't necessarily a safe person, outing them to that person without their consent can be potentially really dangerous, and it's not a situation that you would put anyone in. If you don't need to tell someone this information, why would you go out of your way to do that in the first place, you know? Like, it just feels like some people just like to be that person to tell somebody else somebody's kind of like really big secret, you know? So don't be that person. Like, you don't need to do that. So yeah, just simply don't out people. And also, like, they might be stealth. They present themselves in society as a cis person, or you know, that if they're not asked about if they're trans or not, they're not going to divulge that information, you know, without needing to. So for some people, it's just they don't need to tell the world that they're trans. Like, it's being trans isn't necessarily a part of their day-to-day life anymore. Like, they've gone far enough in their transition that they've kind of got what they wanted from it. They don't want to associate with being trans anymore, and you outing them is not going to help them get away from that. And there's nothing wrong with people going stealth and wanting to have a different way of life and not being associated with being trans. So yeah, if you do find that out, or if they do tell you, don't tell other people. Like, it's just literally not your job. So also, something that's just really important is the concept of dead naming, which is where you call someone the name by which they used to go by, or that they were given at birth, that they no longer use, and they don't want you to use that name anymore, and they've given you a new name to call them by. I've had instances where people have dead named me by saying, oh, remember that time I called you dead name instead of your new name, ha ha ha. Saying that in front of someone who didn't know my dead name. Like, you're saying to someone, remember that time when I dead named you, in front of someone, and you're dead naming them by saying that name again. I was shocked when it happened. I was just like, for me, I don't hide the fact that I used to be called Phoenix. Like, I had that was my name, I used to go by that. I have been online for a while under that name. So a lot of people already know that. So for me, it doesn't, like, and also, like, Phoenix is a very gender neutral name. Like, it doesn't bother me that much. But also, like, I don't understand why using that name, you need to tell people that I used to go by that name. Like, it's not important. My name is Caspian, just call me Caspian, or variations of Caspian, whatever, nicknames. People call me all sorts of names, as long as it's related to that, that's all I care about. And you know, calling someone by their dead name can also be a form of outing them if they're stealth. It's just, there's no need to do it. Like, you really don't need to do it. And if you have this idea that calling someone by their dead name and continue to call someone by their dead name will stop them, like, being trans or caring about being dead named, you're just hurting that person more, because it just shows that you don't respect these basic principles and that you don't want to treat them like another human being. There's nothing wrong with changing your name. Like, that was just a name that you were given at birth. Yeah, your parents called you that name, or a caretaker or a guardian named you that. But it's not offensive to want to change your name. It's not that you don't like, I mean, for some people, obviously they change their name just because they don't like the name that they're given. But for others, it's far deeper than that, and it has to do with gender identity. And it's really important. Like, it's got, like, my mom got over me changing my name so quickly. She was like, yeah, like, that's the name that I gave you. But at the end of the day, she's adjusted to the names that I've gone by, and I am going by. And, you know, she's chill with it. She literally doesn't care. And that's just the most important thing, that she can just adjust to using my new name, and that's it. It's great, amazing, love it. So obviously you don't want to dead name someone, but at the same time you don't want to misgender someone. So if, for example, if I say to someone, my name is Caspian, I use he, him, they, them pronouns, you just go on to then use that in your language when talking about me or to me. When someone first comes out, like, adjusting to that, it takes a little bit of time, because you as a person have to change the way you think about someone in your head and start to use a different name and different pronouns. Like, I've been guilty of that myself sometimes when I come to some of my friends who transition, and I've slipped up once or twice, but then after that I've got used to it. When you slip up, like, you don't have to make a big deal out of it. I feel like this is the most common thing that's ever said by any trans person ever. You don't have to make a big deal out of it when you slip up. All you have to say is, oh, that person, oh, I mean Caspian, did this. Or if you want to say, like, oh, he did that. Like, all you have to do is just, like, oh, I mean this. Because it just shows that you're making that conscious effort, like, oh, I made a mistake, I'll quickly correct myself and get on with the rest of the conversation. Because obviously in your mind, you still adapted and changed your language at the end of the day. Like, yeah, it does suck when you get misgendered, but sometimes it just takes time to adjust, and people do adjust with time, if they care, you know? So it's cool. It's alright, don't worry about it. So as a non-binary person, I have to deal with negativity from both the cis community and the trans community, namely the binary trans community, as in those who identify solely as male or female. If you are not trans, if you are not non-binary, if you identify a certain way, then you have no idea how it feels to identify and feel a different way. So who are you to tell someone that the way they feel isn't genuine? Because you don't feel that way, so you have no idea how that feels. This particularly annoys me when it comes from within the trans community, when trans folk will tell other trans folk that the way that they identify isn't valid. But the way that you identify is different from being cisgender. So if you can invalidate someone else's gender identity, how can you stick steadfast to your own identity being valid? That's what really confuses me. So, like, all gender identities are valid. Even if you think someone making it up or faking it or doing it to be cool or whatever, at the end of the day, it is not your place to judge them and to tell them that their gender identity isn't valid, because you have no idea what someone else is going through. So yeah, it doesn't matter what you think, just shut your mouth and deal with it. So now we're getting to this point where, you know, there are a lot of trans people out there, people are becoming more and more and more aware of the trans community, and they're curious. And they want to know what you do, what you transition, what surgeries are you having, blah 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 blah. It is not something that you should ask people. You would not ask this of a cisgender person, what kind of surgeries they're having regarding to their you know? So why should you do that to a trans person? Just because they're having surgeries does not give you the right to ask them what they're doing. So if somebody goes out of their way to give you this information and encourages you to ask questions, that's different. But when someone just exists, you don't ask them, like, what they're doing in their transition. You don't ask them, particularly don't ask them what surgeries they're having, and you don't ask them what's in their pants. Like, it's just not relevant. You would not do that to anyone else. Why would you do it to a trans person? Just for your curiosity's sake. If somebody offers that information in the first place, like me, I'm very open. I will talk about my transition when it comes up if I need to, because I know people are curious, and it also gives me a place to educate others on what to say or do. Outside of that, don't ask them. You don't need to. Just don't ask. Don't say to people that they are pretty, whatever for a trans person, you know? So don't say, for example, oh, you're so handsome for a trans guy, as in like, oh, you would expect trans people to not be attractive because they're trans. It just comes across as offensive because you're saying, oh, even though you're trans, you're still attractive, as if being trans equals being unattractive, but it really doesn't. The issue of telling someone that you didn't realize they were trans can come with very mixed results. For me, when someone says, oh, I didn't realize you were trans, that's cool, because I'm at a point where I feel like online I can pass a little bit easier, or in real life if I'm wearing certain clothes and I have loads of facial hair, I can pass a little bit easier. However, this can also come across as, oh, I didn't realize you were trans because you look so much like the gender you were assigned at birth, you know? So either way that you say this, it can come across a bit rude because you're saying that you didn't know someone was trans, and now that you do know that they're trans, it changes the way that you think of them, not necessarily in a positive way. So again, you can say to someone, for example, if someone says to me, oh, I didn't realize you were trans, that's awesome, like, you passed well. Well, for me personally, it doesn't bother me, but it can bother other trans people because sometimes not passing and telling someone it can come across as misgendering them a little bit, and it cannot feel good. I mean, I've been there myself. It's not the best feeling ever. And on that note, like, don't point out things for people that haven't happened during their transition. Like for me, my voice hasn't dropped as low as I would want it to, like my facial features haven't changed as much as I would want them to, and yeah, like if someone pointed out, oh, your voice isn't that low, I'd be like, well, heck, I know, like I'm very aware of this, you know? So if you have something that you want to say that you think like, oh, like I know trans people have had this and this happen, like it hasn't happened to you, like don't say it, because as trans folk we are the most aware out of everyone of what has happened within our own transition and the things that we want to happen more or less. So yeah, you don't need to say it. For me, as a non-binary trans masculine person who dresses in pastel fashion to a point that some folks believe that how I dress is relatively feminine, which I don't think it does. Colours don't have gender. I don't wear like a traditionally feminine silhouette. I will link down below to my video on navigating kawaii fashion as a trans mass person. I don't associate myself with femininity, and I don't see the way that I dress as feminine. Like I don't get it. So I like to call myself pretty. I really like being pretty. That's kind of my association, and you don't have to be feminine to be pretty. So I get people telling me, why do you dress so feminine if you're a trans masculine person? And I'm just like, well, I don't. And also, I don't follow a traditionally masculine like lifestyle that men are supposed to take, because I don't even identify 100% as a man. Like, if you want to go and check out my video on being demigender, I'll link that down below too. Being masculine or feminine doesn't have to define your gender identity, particularly if you are trans. Just don't say to people, oh, you're so feminine for a trans masculine person. Like, what? So why? Can you explain that to me? Like, it can be really rude, because you're kind of saying, oh, you identify that way, then why don't you act like you're that way, you know? So it's just, yeah, you don't need to do it. Don't bother. It's okay. We're getting along fine. We identify the way we do. We're happy with the way we identify. Go and watch my videos, my other videos on gender identity and my own identity, if that's something that you really want to know more about, because I explain it all there. So there's probably lots of other things that you should not say to a trans person, but that's my current list of things so far. If you have anything that you think people should know about, please let me know down in the comments, and go and check out the comments just to see what other people are saying. On that note, let's have some things that you should say to trans folk. Definitely, I 100% recommend all these things that I'm about to say. Definitely do these towards trans people. Get their name and their pronouns right. Even if it takes you a little bit of time, you mess up a little bit, eventually you'll just get used to saying it. And it's so important to a trans person to be gendered correctly and to people use the right name, that every time someone goes out of their way to like use the right name and pronouns like straight away and eventually just get used to saying that about you, it helps the validation of yourself, because people around you are also validating you, and it's just really important for your mental health and just your general well-being, just to be seen in the right way. So yeah, ask people what name they want to go by if they have said that they're trans. Like, oh, do you want me to call you by a different name? Do you want me to call you by different pronouns? Are there particular compliments that you would like me to call you in future as opposed to what I may have called you in the past? Like, literally, it's so easy. You just say to someone who's come out as trans, just ask them. Ask them the things that they would like for you to do to help validate their existence as a trans person. If you do have questions, if you are curious, if you want to support someone that you know is trans, be it a family member or a friend or whatever, rather than asking them all the really personal questions that come with being trans, just hit the internet, go to Google, watch videos from YouTubers, watch my videos about gender, watch other people's video about gender. Like, there's so much information out there, and it saves you having to maybe offend or be accidentally rude to someone who's trans because you're asking them really inappropriate questions. Like, it's not something that you should be asking people regardless of who they are. So go to the internet, it's there. Like, there's so many things you can do, and you can really educate yourselves on these issues. Like, my mom, I know that after I came out of trans, she read so many things on the internet. Like, she really took the time to go out of her way to educate herself, and that to me means a lot to me, because she'll come to me and be like, have you seen this article about this thing about being trans? And I'm just like, I haven't seen the article, but I kind of know what it's about, and I appreciate that you're trying to educate yourself and maybe even educate me on things that you thought that I might not necessarily know about, you know? So yeah, like, the information is out there, it's on the internet, it's important, go check it out. At the end of the day, your trans friends are your friends, they are not your trans encyclopedia, and will not have all of the things that you want to know about anyway. So educate yourself. It's really easy and very important. And the next thing is advocate loudly and openly for trans rights. We are fighting a really hard fight just by ourselves, just to exist in this world, that we appreciate all the help we can get. So if someone you know has kind of transphobic views and you think, oh, maybe I can step in and educate them on why this is rude, just give it a go, you know, because at the end of the day, you can change the way that somebody thinks about a trans person and might stop them saying something horrible to the next trans person they see. It's a fight that we're all battling, and we just want the same rights as the next person. We just want to exist and be ourselves just in the same way the next person does. So yeah, educate yourselves, advocate loudly, be open to education and educating yourself and educating others. Yeah, so that's all I have to say for now. Yeah, if you have any other ideas on things to say or not to say to trans folk, write them down below. Again, I'm just saying all this from a perspective as a non-binary trans-masculine person. I can't speak for necessarily other folks, particularly trans-feminine folk. I will link down below my other videos that I have done on gender. This pretty boy badge is from Damnation Party, and this Harajuku kid is from Darling Assland, from my brand. So yeah, if you want to go and get some gender affirming badges, go and check those down below. I'll also link them down below. Thank you for watching, guys. Bye.